Hi, and welcome to the Spirit of the Valley. I have another fascinating guest again. You know, you never think we can get any better, but we have. You probably know Nora Jacobson, and welcome, Nora. I'm very, very happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here.
You've got a good endeavor we're going to talk about. A lot of you know Nora, and I don't know as much as I'd like to know, which is why part of that is going to be settled here. But I know you're a filmmaker.
Yes.
And I don't know how long or I'll start with that. Have you been in filmmaking for years and years? Or
I have.
You have?
Since high school.
Oh, that face says it feels it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so you went right from high school into this?
Pretty much. I mean, I made my first film in high school, a little Super 8 film in Hanover High. It was a way to get out of writing an English paper, by the way. And
we all have ulterior motives for things.
Exactly. And I enjoyed it, but I never thought I'd take it seriously. And then I got into college, and I took a few more film classes, and I thought, wow, this is interesting. I'm getting really sucked in. Wow. But I still didn't think that was going to be my job in the world until I transferred to Dartmouth College from my other college, and then I really started
they had a good
to get
thing here that really
in it.
Added to your
Yes, they had a teacher there that just was able to get a group of students together who just loved the films that he showed, and we all decided we wanted to be filmmakers. And then I went on to art school, graduate school, and got a master's and kept making films. Moved to New York, made films, came back to Vermont, making films.
But you did the big city thing too. That's kind of cool.
Yes.
But you're probably happier here. Am I right or wrong?
I love cities.
Okay, so you're one that does both.
Country. I do both.
Most people say, I've been there long enough, I got to get back to the woods. And so it is, but you do both, you balance.
I haven't been to the city in a long time. I haven't been to New York in, I don't know, a couple of years. But I love New York. I love any city, really.
That's good, because so many of us get kind of hunkered in here, and cities become scary.
No, not me.
Good for you. Well, you're doing something now, and it's been several years in the making.
Yes.
A Vermont movie collaborative. Is that what I remember?
Yes.
And tell them and us and me and what you're doing, because I've watched the trailer that you sent, and it's fascinating, and I have several questions I have about it. But just give us a taste of it.
Well, back in 2005, I think, I was noticing friends and elder friends around me passing away. Yeah. And my father was one of them, who was a transplanted Vermonter, and I thought, wow, I better get some of their stories down. Wow. Vermont is such an interesting place. Yep. Here are these elder Vermonters who are passing away. Yeah. I better get their stories down, better make a film about Vermont. At the time, I was working on a couple of other films, and I thought, I can't do this alone. Why not get a group of Vermont filmmakers to tell the story of Vermont?
That's what I was getting at, and I wanted to know is how you recruited and got...
Yeah, I started doing it alone, and then I thought, doesn't make sense. A film about a state really should be made by more than one person. The
people that live in it.
Exactly.
Oh boy. And you got how many in this one?
Right now, well, last time I counted, we have 49 creative people involved in this project.
Oh, that's funny, because of course on the trailer you don't see...
No, you don't see
count,
all of them.
And you certainly know it isn't that many.
Yeah, we have over 24 active filmmakers who actually created short segments for the film. Which is now being woven together.
And I will tell you, this is fun to watch, because you're seeing people who are telling their story along with some of the history of it, but they are the people that are right in that spot and know it best. So you've really got the authentic angle here. It's not like some people who plug in different pieces that they learn about. You've got the people that lived it.
Yep.
That is a fascinating way to have been motivated. Just they're dying. I need to get the history out of them. I mean, not to be that simplistic about it, but
morbid about it.
Morbid. I mean, just we're losing great resources in these people, and they have stories and can't tell them later. So you jumped on it.
Yeah.
Well, it's a fascinating thing to watch, because each person has such a different view and different subject and different piece of Vermont, and you get the range. You get the whole gamut of types of people, types of situations, locations, culturally, socially, every way.
Yes, although I should say that not every part of Vermont is being told in this film. In fact, I'm sure many of you, if you watch it, you'll say, well, wait a minute, what about this story?
Exactly.
What about that story?
Exactly.
And so what we're doing is we're creating a website, an interactive website, and we are going to be encouraging people to tell their own stories about Vermont, short stories about Vermont, using our film as sort of a guideline, and then upload it to our website. Now that website hasn't been made yet because we're still finishing the film, but we will.
Is there a way they can at least get a sense of, you can give them a website?
Yes, well,
just to see what this is about.
Exactly. You can actually already begin to look at what we're doing by going to our website, which is called thevermontmovie.com. One word, thevermontmovie.com. And you'll see we have about a 7-minute trailer up there with little pieces.
We're actually going to weave it in here.
Oh, you are?
We found we could if we...
Oh, good.
Just without that last little bit that's the pitch. But it would be a fabulous way to connect it with what we're talking about.
Yes.
So we can
do that would be great.
We can. Because but they should we'll see what this is all about anyway. There's more there than just us.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
So that's good, and we'll mention that again in case you haven't got it, because it is something. I mean, why I'm saying that, I'll be honest about it. They are going to be fundraising for this movie. You can't just put a movie together and with that many people involved and get it out there without some funds. Everyone knows that, whether they're in films or not. So, but we as a nonprofit, local access can't sell it for them. So what we're doing is just we want to know as much about it as we can to encourage you and entice you to get on the website and look it up, because it's a fun thing to watch, and you will see it on the show. But fun to find out just more about the collaborative too, I think. Yeah,
the collaborative nature of it was really fascinating and interesting. Probably the hardest part for me, because as a filmmaker, we're used to working kind of alone.
It's your work.
Yeah, and we do hire people to help us occasionally, but it's pretty solitary, especially when you get into the editing.
Yeah.
So this project, I had 24 collaborators, and I had to keep an eye on quality control.
Of course you did.
And then it was sometimes hard to tell certain people, well, it's just your footage isn't quite up to snuff.
It wasn't quite what we're after or something.
Yeah, exactly. I had to do that a couple of times, and that was not easy. But sometimes I think it was a learning process for everyone, because some of those people went on and actually started to do really good work. And so it really...
Everybody learned.
Exactly. Everyone learned, and I learned how to hold my tongue and be diplomatic and
I think those kind of meetings are tough when it's like firing someone. It's like, how do I do this without really hurting them and yet saving what I need to have in my...
Yeah, because the film has to have a certain professional caliber to it, and we were really casting our web wide in terms of being as inclusive as we could. I think there were only maybe 1 or 2 people who actually ended up not being involved because of that.
Are these all people that have their own filmmaking worlds going, or are they people amateur type approach?
A lot of them, it's a huge range. I mean, we have people like Jay Craven, who's a very professional filmmaker, lives up in the St. Johnsbury area, to people who are working at a place like this, public access in Burlington, for example. So it's quite a range. We've had people involved who had never made films but really wanted to be involved in some way. So it's been quite fun to bring so many people into the project.
It sounds, I mean, the more the better for this, because the more of Vermont you get.
Exactly.
Except you can't, it would be unwieldy if you had more than you have probably, as far as getting them all equal time. And
well, we can't give everyone equal time.
Because you can't promise that ever.
Absolutely not.
But you'd be shortchanging someone somehow, maybe, so that this way you're getting the best of everybody that you have and not diluting it any further. And then you might end up doing another one. Who knows?
Well, we might. I mean, I don't know.
You've got time left. Come on.
No, I know.
But it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and I'm not sure. I don't know if I'd have the energy to start a huge project like this again.
It's a big deal. And just getting the funding is obviously not the fun part, but it's the necessary part.
Well, that's exactly.
Exposed.
Yeah, I mean, we did start this online funding. A lot of people have heard of Kickstarter, for example.
Yes, exactly.
It's kind of like Kickstarter, but it's called USA Projects.
Okay.
And and not everyone wants to contribute online either.
That's right.
It's not everyone is familiar and comfortable with the internet.
Interesting, yeah.
So,
I mean, it takes a while. It took me a while before I gave out anything to anybody, but I had to know who I was dealing with, and then it was fine. So, but there's nothing here you can't trust people, I promise you. But that's not the fun part. The fun part is what you do, is filmmaking. And whatever you do beyond the fundraising is more fun than any fundraising would ever be.
Yes,
because the best of us isn't crazy about asking people for money.
It's very hard. This has been actually probably the hardest part of the whole process, is interrupting the editing. I've been editing 12-hour days trying to get this film done because I'm the one in charge of weaving together all these separate pieces. And
when do you see it, if you had to guess?
Spring.
So
I'm really hoping
pretty
this
firm
spring.
the way you said that.
Yeah, I determined.
The spring, people, you heard it here.
It might be the fall.
It's like any other job you hear as an estimate.
But
stretched.
hoping for the spring, and then we're going to do a tour around Vermont. We're going to take the 5 parts and we'll show part 1 all around the state for the first week, and then part 2 the second week all around the state. Part 3 like that.
That's perfect. Now, what kind of venues would you be looking to do that in?
It'll be a combination of town halls and little theaters.
So you're keeping it just as what are real, authentic as it could be by having them in settings where people naturally congregate in that area.
Exactly. It could be libraries. It could be a school auditorium.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So you'll be that's in the spring.
Yep.
And now, what if it gets to be? I mean, you'll hopefully get where you need to be with the part you don't like. But so then what happens in terms of production? Are you doing it, or do you have a company help you? What do you do to get it actually out there?
Showable?
Yeah.
I have help. I have a wonderful assistant, Emma Mullen, who helps me.
She's my best pen pal lately.
Yes. She's a young woman from Rockingham who comes a couple of days a week or works from home.
Nice.
Nat Winthrop is my co-producer who's helping fundraise. Nice. And then all the filmmakers, as they can, if they can, help. Right now, it's pretty much on my shoulders to weave together all these pieces. It's really hard to have more than one person editing.
It's just too many cooks type.
Yeah, exactly.
Syndrome.
So, and fortunately, I love editing, and it's the part probably that I'm finding the most interesting is linking together these little stories and finding the interesting connections between them.
Like the continuity aspect and segues.
Yes. Fascinating.
I mean, because you can't do that kind of thing by just plunking piece by piece.
No,
if
can't.
it's not connected, it doesn't sell.
Yes.
Or it doesn't feel right either. It just isn't natural.
That's right.
But I can see the fun part would be to make it all make sense, like putting a puzzle together.
Exactly. Creating the narrative out of all these
and here comes the
pieces.
stream of consciousness kind of flowing through
You've
every
got
one
it.
of these people.
Yeah.
I think that part would be fascinating. And I will tell you, I've seen these folks, and they're so fun to watch because they're passionate and they're legitimate, the real deal, and they're talking about what particular piece or subject is fairly important to them. And you get this from what you'll see as we link this trailer onto this show, because it's just going to be like an appetizer. You're going to want more. And I found that. I was sorry it was over, because I think these people were fabulous to work. And it's, I don't know, it's just so homey and down to earth. And
well, that's right. That was very important to me, that the whole film has an intimate feel to it. I sometimes call it a home movie about Vermont.
It feels home like that. Yeah. You're sitting in your living room watching your neighbor talk, or someone you know. I mean, they're just real folks telling their story in a really simple, beautiful way that makes it believable. And I mean, if it isn't credible, it isn't anything. So, but these are the people. They aren't actors. They aren't fancy. They aren't made up. They aren't any of that. So,
and most of them aren't academics. I mean, yes, we have some wonderful advisors who are professors, who are on camera and talk, but a lot of the history is told by regular people. Yeah. Like we have a wonderful guy, John Dutton, who unfortunately passed away a couple years ago, who was the ancient road specialist in Bethel, Vermont. And we tromped with him through the woods in Bethel. And he told us all about the history of Vermont just by walking through the woods and finding these incredible stone walls.
And which are so symbolic of this area. I mean, it's Robert Frost all over the place. Oh, that's so neat. And you learned so much about each person, too. Not just what they were talking about, but you got to know them as people.
Yep.
I can't think of a better way to make a film.
Well, it's fun.
It's just so human.
It's a fun activity.
It's human, but also I learned some history, and I learned more about Vermont. I'm not a Vermonter, so I mean, I could always learn more. And these were people that were making it fun to learn it versus a book.
Well, and I also hope it won't make people feel, oh, well, this is just a story of Vermont, so if I'm not a Vermonter, I don't need to watch this. I think that the story is interesting enough and universal enough.
Yeah.
We're trying to make it universal enough as often as possible.
Oh, I think, I never even felt that they weren't my neighbor or anything. I just meant that I didn't know much about the history of it. And I don't know enough about New Hampshire either. But it was the kind of person I'd rather learn from than someone standing in front of a big lecture hall or something.
Yes.
This is just, there's just something about the way they just are, I say plain folk in the best possible way, because I prefer plain folk anyway. But they were just telling you their story. It wasn't scripted, it wasn't fancy, it was their language, their personality, their nature, all woven into what they were saying.
Yeah.
And it was delightful. And so anyway, that much. But I wanted to ask you, I had a few notes here, because when I read I read about on the website, and I do suggest you see it, because just the story. And I was wondering at first who it was for, and what the mission and all of that. So I'm sure it's for anyone.
Right.
Everyone.
Yes, that question is always hard for filmmakers, because
Yeah.
we want our films to be seen by everyone.
And
But of course
universally,
they don't.
yeah.
You know, they're not seen by everyone. So I feel that this film is for lovers of history,
Yeah.
lovers of Vermont,
Yep.
lovers of filmmaking,
Yep. Oh, at big three right there.
and teachers. You know, people who teach about civics, who teach about geography, about geology, about industry, about history, because all of those things
But
are
it's amazing.
woven into the film.
It's amazing how many subjects you could talk about in just that question, that answer, because it really, people even that just like something that's real and down to earth and neighborly and homey versus a big production from Hollywood, which isn't real at all. I mean, I don't mean that as a slight, just this is real, period. So, okay, and you had a mission, if I remember the website or the site of that, what was it?
A mission of the film, you
Well,
mean?
the title says everything.
Well, the
We ought to get to
title
that.
is
Yeah.
Freedom and Unity, the Vermont Movie.
Yes.
And the website is thevermontmovie.com. And, well, Vermont has a very interesting state motto.
Yep.
It's freedom and unity. So we figure that that's a great motto for our film as
Absolutely.
well, and our working process, because all of the filmmakers had the freedom to tell the story that they wanted to within certain
Yep.
restrictions that we laid out for
Yep,
them.
you have to.
And then the unity comes in bringing all the stories together
Yeah.
into a
Well,
unified
you did
whole.
give life to that phrase. There's no question that that motto lives throughout this thing, because it has, you can get that sense in some of the topics that are touched on. You can get all of but the unity of how that all came together and how they all fit into your big master plan was incredible, because you chose beautifully. You chose people that really could say it in the way you wanted it said, which wasn't fancy and rehearsed and all that. It was just telling a story. I don't know if you've seen that wonderful movie that's out on the Wilder Center rehab.
No,
But
I haven't.
that's how
Sean
those
Clausen's-
people spoke too, when they were asked what they felt about this being done to their neighborhood or whatever. And they just told it right from the heart. You know, it's fine as long as they don't keep me up at night and that kind of thing. And it was delightful. And they got exactly what they wished for. And Sean did such a beautiful job. I emailed him afterwards, because he was in school with my daughter. And I hadn't been aware of what he was up to since then. So I found him out and wrote him and said, bingo, you got it. And was he a protege of yours, or was he someone that worked with you? Or
unfortunately, no. I
business?
just know him because he was involved a bit with White River Indie Film Festival, which is what I'm very much involved with.
Exactly.
And Sean, I think, was on our documentary committee.
Oh.
And when he was making a film about Africa, something in Africa, I don't know if it's finished. I don't think it's finished yet. But I think he took some time off to do the Wilder
That
Center
was
film.
a special project for David.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but he did a beautiful job, and he really he got it trimmed right down to what had to be in there.
good.
The nitty gritty was just the neighborhood and the whole reaction to this job David was taking on with the building. And then Vicki was here when we talked about all the different events and how broad, wide-reaching that use of that
I've been
place.
to that space.
Isn't it
It's
great?
beautiful.
It's stunning.
Yeah.
And when you watch this movie, they speed it up so that they don't take you through every nail being hammered, but they take you to the clock fixing and the organ and but that's the kind of work that it's neighborly. It's something that you can relate to as a person watching it, even if you live in another state. But I mean, a lot of these values are state countrywide, particularly up
Totally.
here. I mean, you
Absolutely.
almost could have said New Hampshire, but it
Yeah.
isn't. It's Vermont, and these
Yeah.
are.
I mean, I think
Let
every
someone else do
state,
it.
yeah, but every state is unique and every state has
True.
very interesting things about it. I mean, one thing that we've had to really wrestle with
Yep.
is this a film about Vermont's exceptionalism?
Yep.
And I've always said, no, it is not. It is a film about what's really interesting about Vermont,
Right.
but that doesn't mean that other states aren't just
Exactly.
as interesting, and hopefully it'll
Exactly.
make people want to delve into the histories of their own
Of their
state.
own. I think it would be a motivator for other filmmakers. I do.
I hope so.
Because whether it's a
Yeah.
regional type film or not, it would. I don't know. I found that they were values that I would see in my state,
Yeah.
neighboring, but it wasn't because it's about Vermont. That's because it's your baby, and you can do what you want.
Well, yeah, but I mean, also
But you
there
should
is
pick.
some specificity.
Of course
I mean,
it is.
every state does have very particular things that happen there.
Right.
And one of our goals was to look at the history and say, well, wait a minute, that happened, that happened.
You had
Vermont
some
was a
real
republic.
firsts that people don't know about.
Yes.
In fact,
absolutely.
my memory's not good anymore. But I read this long list of first elementary school in the country or something like that.
It was the first state
something.
to write into its constitution that everyone had the right to a public education
Okay.
up to 8th grade.
That's pretty significant.
It was in the Constitution. Also, the first state to abolish slavery.
Yep. You had some inventions here. I can't.
Well,
but
the
it was
scale,
the scale.
the scale, the Fairbanks scale, which was revolutionary.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, to be able to weigh things the way those scales did
the
it.
way you can trust it.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you go to this, when you watch this, I'll just leave it that. When you see this trailer, you will get what I mean. And I'm sorry I forgot them, but there's a long list of firsts for Vermont, which most of us haven't heard, and I'm
Right.
very impressed by that list.
Well, precision machinery, for example.
But there were other firsts, like there was a library from some first public library, something.
I don't
something
know.
Pretty.
It's got
maybe
the
I'm
biggest.
off.
It's got the biggest. Yeah, it's got the largest number of public libraries of all states.
That's where I'm.
Yeah, the first African American to go to college
That's right.
and to serve in the legislature.
Yep.
You know, so
So
that's
this is
pretty
worth seeing,
significant.
just to know that about the state. If you don't,
And so then the question is, well, does all of these interesting things have something to do with where we are today?
Yep.
What Vermont is today?
Yep.
So anyway,
well,
it's an interesting
students
discussion.
of history would love to
Yeah.
take that on and follow up with that,
Yes.
because the values are, and you talked, literally there's social issues, and there are, and that's where Vermont's been sort of in the forefront too, and that's kind of cool to see
Right.
that they're as current as they are with today's social issues and
Yes.
whatever you call them, but they were leaders, and they
still are.
They still are. And
That's the interesting
so
thing.
that's the interesting thing. So
Yeah.
your timetable is that this movie, it should be out hopefully in the spring, but
Yes.
it's going to depend on some of this.
Some of the
this
fundraising,
fundraising that we hate
absolutely.
talking
In fact,
about.
the fundraising has sort of made me taking a big hole out of my
Yeah,
editing.
exactly.
You know,
Well, that is
So-
a big job,
Yeah, it's a
because you
big
don't
job.
go anywhere without it, unfortunately.
Exactly,
Too bad
exactly.
it isn't something people just send you money because they're.
No, but we have.
you getting-
I
are you
certainly want to say that we've been the recipients of great generosity,
Oh,
not
wonderful.
from individuals and from foundations.
Oh,
I mean,
good.
this is the last of the funding that we
Good.
need that we're doing
This is
right
where
now.
we go right to the
Sort of
folks.
the last bit.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I urge you to, well, you'll see it if you're watching us now, you're going to see what follows. So it'll be at the end of this show. And I think that's important because it does make sense after they've listened to you. And then they're
hope
going to
so.
see what you've just referred to
Okay.
in terms of the people and my feeling about how real and wonderful they were and are. But that will follow so that you will get a sense of what we've just been babbling on about. And then go to the website and
Right.
be friends of this
Can I
collaborative.
just say
Of
that
course.
there are two other bits of video on
Please.
the website. There's
Yes.
the first one, which is our little fundraising pitch and trailer. But if you navigate on the website, you'll see our other trailer, our sort of real trailer, which is longer. It's about 7 minutes. And then there's also, if you go to the school kit, the site for educators, there's a clip about the Underground Railroad, about an escaped slave. Because one thing that we did was we created a DVD for schools.
Oh, just for school?
Just for schools, where we took 12 little stories from the Vermont movie,
Perfect.
put them on a DVD, created a study guide,
Perfect.
and they're in over 125 schools in Vermont right now.
gosh.
And so if anyone would like
That's
that
fascinating.
DVD, that one is done.
That's a fascinating thing to know, because there
Yeah.
are plenty of people that are always looking to upgrade and add to and enhance what they have on their curriculum.
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect, because kids would get, I mean, they learn well from this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the kind of thing where people are either visual, whatever, but I think this is the kind of thing, it's history that I was having fun with, and history was never my strong suit, so.
Sounds like you're interested
I
in
am,
it,
well,
though.
I loved it. I loved the trailer alone is just enough to give you a taste, but it's enough to really be substantial. So I wish you the best with this, because
Thank you.
I think it's a really valuable thing for any state particularly, but being up here, it's special that it's right next door. Give them the website one more time. Just
Okay,
it's simple, but you need it again.
It's www.thevermontmovie.com. I knew I wanted to make a film about Vermont, and I knew I couldn't make it alone.
Nora, you're not alone.
You need help, Nora.
I'll be there.
Oh, well, I'll join in.
I'll help.
I'll help.
I wanted to help.
We're here to help you.
You know, Vermont has a great state motto. Do you know what it is?
Freedom and unity. We each have the ability to do what we want with our lives. But there's also recognition that you need to work together for a common good, and that when you're raising the roof on the barn, you need more than just your family. You need your neighbors also.
Freedom and Unity is a collaborative film made by over 24 filmmakers. We all chose which story we wanted to tell, and we chose how to tell it.
Something that I really like about the Vermont movie, and is very important to me, is how we talk about race.
Vermont is often called the whitest state in the Union.
But the reality is that at the time of the founding of the state, there were a lot of African Americans that were living here.
This state was the first state in the country to abolish slavery, and people knew what they were doing.
More recently, it was the first state to allow civil union.
Forward ever, backward never. Forward.
That's a new way of thinking.
What do you mean, Mr. Taylor?
It would go right up along there.
Where?
There.
This project to me was always about what is Vermont.
It's about highways and land use. It's about eugenics, geology and geography. It's about
story of Romaine Tenney from Ascutney.
People who live off the grid, who generate their own power, generate their own food.
It's about
revolution and workers. The people who worked stone, who worked the land, and built community.
Yeah, it's about the evolution of communities in Vermont.
People who moved to Vermont because they wanted to change the world, and they also wanted to change the way they lived.
It's about the political struggles in Vermont. It's about
Vermont Yankee Nuclear Power Plant.
And also
the Alcoholics Anonymous story. That through helping others, you're helping yourself.
I wanted to learn more about this state. I wanted to learn more about why the nation looks at Vermont as an incubator for true innovation.
We wanted to figure out, is this something that's particular to Vermont and the Vermonter character, or is it just coincidental?
You've got to get into the specifics in order to then draw conclusions and parallels with other places, other times, and just about us as human beings.
The experience one gets from volunteering, from participating in local government, in town meetings, in filming, all give you this boots on the ground sense that you're here in a real place.
It's so easy to feel familiar in a place but not really ever examine what we truly value.
It means we came together as a group. It means that we had the freedom to work in our own style, but still benefit from the contributions of the entire organization of people.
I've been nourished, my work has been respected, and I felt honored by this community of Vermont filmmakers.
We've done a lot of work, we're almost there, and now we need your help to finish.